Hello, and welcome to another episode of Espresso with Aaron and
Sarit.
I'm Aaron.
And I'm Sarit, in the case that you don't know who we are.
Yeah, and today we're going to be talking about a couple of things. We have a topic, a general topic of the day, and then we like to get sidetracked and go down rabbit holes. So I'm sure that will also happen today, but all very valuable, either in the form of entertainment, education, or just bettering yourself. So today's topic that we have scheduled is the all or nothing trap, and how actually there are really great things about this mentality of all or nothing, but we're going to name it something else later. And then there are huge downsides to all or nothing, which we know as all or nothing. So when you think about it, imagine if you had we have a car. Her name is Tessie. She's a Tesla. And imagine if she only had two speeds.
Two speeds.
Parked and 100 miles an hour.
Yeah.
How well do you think you would fare on the roads trying to get out of the parking lot if you got 0 or 100?
Well, for one, if you know anything about me and driving, you know that I would let Tessie take the wheel by itself. You know what I mean?
But you can only go 0 or you can go 100.
Yeah. It's such a good analogy.
You're gonna, y'all know what's gonna happen. Immediately wrecked.
Yeah.
Immediately. Just trying to come out of the parking, just trying to come pull out of your parking spot, a little Pilates studio. Actually, let's say the CrossFit gym.
Either. Hi, honey.
I was going to say Walmart.
Yeah.
But that's all or nothing. But there's a different name for the upside of this. It's called all in. It's not all or nothing. It's all in, committed, focused, intentional. And it can be the all or nothing mentality or personality can significantly benefit you if you know how to use it. If you don't know how to use it, or if you haven't learned how to harness its true potential and power, it's completely disruptive.
I agree. Yeah.
So
yes. What are the consequences that it creates? Is it makes you, for those of you guys who are here with us live, jump in. If you struggled with an all or nothing mindset, what are the consequences that has created in your life? So the consequences that it creates, the most common one, is that it makes a person fall off whatever pursuit they're doing, right? Whether they just got on and something happened, let's use the car analogy. Okay, I just got in my car and I was about to leave, but then another car drove by. So
when I started going, the only speed option I had was 100 miles.
Yeah, so I didn't leave the parking lot because I could only go 100 miles per hour.
What's happening back here?
So the reality is that an all or nothing mindset is actually very limiting. It's very limiting because it creates a condition. And conditions in the context of body transformation look like when it's a certain time of the year, when it's a certain time of the month, when life is looking a certain way, when it's a certain season in life, right? It's just like a condition for, driving a car that can drive either 100 miles or 0 miles per hour. It's okay, no pedestrian should be walking next by, or okay, no car should be coming around, or the roads better not be icy, or it better not be raining, or it better not be foggy. Why? Because all of these are obstructions, when the reality is that the obstruction is the perspective that has been created. And that is that in order for me to execute on X, the condition needs to be Y. So creating conditions for success is really what takes away from the possibility of success, because more success is going to happen the more consistently, the more often we execute. And that's what allows us to create intensity.
Mhm.
Like no one, just like a kid who's learning how to drive a car, there's a reason why there's a sticker that says student driver, and you see them like riding at 15 miles an hour. Right? Why? They have not yet earned the right of intensity because they don't yet have full control. Meanwhile, most people who want to manipulate their body are trying to go from 0 to 100, 0 to 100 when they haven't yet learned to create full control. So what ends up happening is the same pattern over and over and over again. Okay. And to help you with that, I'm just going to get to it right now. If you know that this has been a struggle for you, then you need to join us for the Stay on Track Challenge. Because in the Stay on Track Challenge, we're going to talk about the 5 obstacles that stop a person from leading with consistency. And let me tell you something, you cannot afford to not lead your life with consistency, because the same thing is going to happen. It's the holidays, it's the winter blues, it's the time of day, it's the temperature outside, it's the, oh, it's summer break, oh, it's winter break. And before you know it, life went by. So
great. Something that I thought about while you were talking is that why does a car have every speed between 0 and 100? Like, why do all those speeds exist? I'm sure we're smart enough with technology. We could be like, oh, you get 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, or you get 30, 50, 70. Like, the point is that there's a time and a place for every speed.
That's really good.
There is a time and a place for every speed. The parking lot is not the time or place for 100 miles an hour. It's not. It's try it. See what happens. And so you're talking about, there's a reason that a younger, newer, more inexperienced driver has a sticker, a warning sign, if you will. Like, how many of y'all need warning signs for your health and fitness journey right now? May lose mind if sees a donut. Do not feed this animal. Okay, so anyways, kidding aside, but not really because it's fun, the maturity level of a driver is a significant thing to consider. Just like your maturity level in this journey. If you're still starting and stopping and starting and stopping and it's really jerky, you're still immature in this journey. You may have been doing it for 20 years, but you haven't gotten the proper education. You haven't learned the right systems. You haven't gotten the right tools. You haven't gotten around the right people. And that's okay. Don't hear me say that like you're a bad human being. I'm just saying that's the reality of the situation.
Yeah.
Now,
what's my honey?
When you, I want to look up a couple of different definitions because there's a difference. So like when you, let's continue on the driving analogy and the driving example. By the way, if this is already valuable to you, will you click the share button and share it to your Facebook page, or will you tag some of your people that you know who are into health and fitness and wanting to better themselves in this video so they can come and pop on to and join us? So I'm looking up 2 definitions because I want to see just what this says on a technical. But there's a difference between aggressive and reckless.
That's good.
You have aggressive drivers. You have reckless drivers. They're not the same. I would consider myself aggressive.
And there's also cautious. Let's talk about all of those because there's...
Well, cautious can also be reckless. So yes, cautious too. Okay, we'll put it in another category.
Because I wouldn't consider myself a reckless driver.
Yeah. Okay, here's the deal though. Too slow. Like, okay, time and a place for every speed. 20 miles an hour is not the time or place for the freeway. unless there's bumper to bumper traffic. But let's assume traffic is flowing smoothly and speed limit's 60 miles an hour. 20 is more dangerous than 80. So aggressive, I want to read these definitions. So aggressive is showing a readiness to attack or being forceful in getting things done. So it's like assertive, like I'm ready, I am alert, I am, I'm going for it. And then there's reckless, which is usually that is funny. Okie dokie, Aaron can't spell. Is without thinking or caring about the consequences of an action. So when you are saying, oh, I'm not going to eat any more sugar. I'm not going to eat any more sugar or have any more alcohol for 2 months. But you don't really think through the fact that you're not acclimated to that. You don't think through the fact that that's like 100 miles an hour when you've been at maybe 20. And there are some speeds in between to get to that. Now, I'm not talking about people who significantly abuse a substance that immediately alters their state of mind. Mm-hmm. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about you say like go cold turkey. If you have struggled with alcohol addiction or some other addiction of drugs, food could be one of them, but it's more, there's a difference. It doesn't immediately impact your cognitive function. It does significantly, but there's a difference. Okay. So I went on a tangent here. You haven't considered that you have some steps in between. So to expect yourself to be able to go from no sugar or alcohol or carbs or whatever, to expect yourself to go from eating those things consistently multiple times a week to none at all, you are reckless, like setting yourself up for failure. Mm-hmm. Because there's some speeds in between. And then also, like if we talk about, let's say who's been an athlete before? I mean, there's still an athlete in you, but who's been like really athletic, fit, feel good about themselves, like, and you look back at pictures and you're like, oh, I thought I was fat then. And you are where you are now. Is the time and place for you to not be going the same speed you were going then. Could you get back up to that speed? Sure. But you're not there. So take all the speeds in between. Mm-hmm. I've used the analogy too before of like going from Florida to Antarctica. Like the humid, hot stickiness of Florida, mm-hmm. where your body's used to that climate, to Antarctica. Mm-hmm. Like you're going to be colder there than somebody who lives in Michigan. Because all of these spaces in between help you acclimate to a certain weather or climate. So reckless versus aggressive. You can be aggressive with your goals, but not reckless. Mm-hmm. You can be aggressive. What would that look like?
What's the definition of reckless and aggressive?
I read them about 5 minutes ago.
Go back to aggressive.
Okay. Aggressive, showing a readiness to attack. It can also mean growing, developing, or spreading rapidly. Mm-hmm. And then reckless is without thinking or caring about the consequences of an action.
Do you know the difference in my book between reckless and aggressive?
Yeah, let's talk about it.
So they're both intense. Mm-hmm. Both in my book, both reckless and aggressive are intense. Mm-hmm. Now, here's the difference. Aggressive is also intentional. So when there is intentionality backed up by intensity, there is just bigger gains. Now, when there is intensity without any intentionality, then it is going to be the stop and go, stop and go, stop and go. And what does intentionality look like? Intentionality doesn't look like, oh yeah, I want to drop 20 pounds. Intentionality carries into every area of our lives, and it requires really checking in with ourselves with regards to how we our action steps, our habits,
Yeah, I think aggressive, I could also interchange with like assertive. I think assertive has more to do when you're, in a people type situation. But to be aggressive, like I said earlier too, it's like I'm on it, I'm focused, I'm intentional. I'm ready. Like I know what I'm doing. I know where I'm going. I've got my eye on the prize and I'm headed towards it. But to be aggressive doesn't mean that you like the maturity that comes in. So you can be aggressive with maturity. I'd say that's the winning formula. Whereas aggressive with immaturity is reckless, because either way, you're still like going hard after the thing. But if you're less mature in the journey, it will be more reckless.
What would you define as mature?
So maturity is I know when to speed up and when to slow down. I don't have guilt when I choose certain things. I know it's a choice. I'm intentional about the choice. I don't feel bad because I ate the pizza because I planned for it. I knew that that's what was going to happen. I intentionally chose it. I knew I was choosing it. I considered the consequences before I chose it, and I still chose it. Reckless is like, I didn't consider the consequences before I chose it. In fact, I'm going to not even think that I chose it. I'm just going to blame my mood. I'm just going to blame that I had a bad day. I'm just going to blame that my boss yelled at me. I'm just going to blame that it's cloudy and gray outside, so I'm sad. So I ate a pizza. Like that would be maturity versus immaturity.
Yeah, that's good.
And again, it comes with trying a whole bunch of different stuff. Yeah. So if you've tried Jenny Craig and Weight Watchers and Atkins and Jillian Michaels and all these different things, and you think that you have failed all of them, you only failed if you didn't take anything away from it. You only failed if you didn't learn something from it, because falling down is a part of the recipe to walking.
It is.
You cannot learn how to walk if you don't fall. Your body will not do it.
That's so
Nobody
good.
just gets up and walks perfectly their first try.
Yeah, so good.
So it's like the misconception of we're never going to mess up. It's like, it's kind of cliche, and it's very like, it's said very often, you win or you learn. You win or you learn. And it is true as long as you take away the lesson from the whoopsie.
Yeah.
So all these different past things that you have tried before, you could even go back in your mind and kind of reflect and say, why didn't that work for me? Why didn't I succeed in that? Part of it is going to be like your level of commitment. That is what you're responsible for, 100%. However, there are ways that we can make this journey and this process easier for us. We can make it more sustainable. We can make it more enjoyable. And if it's not those things, it will be short-lived. That doesn't mean it won't work. You could lose 20 pounds. It worked. But if the goal isn't to lose 20 pounds to gain it back, then it didn't work. And usually that's not most people's goal. Yeah.
I was just thinking about what if I could clearly define for someone, like how would someone know whether or not they're mature? So here's what came up for me. that will help to define whether it's mine or someone's maturity. First thing is responsibility. And this is how I can understand based off someone's language what their level of responsibility is. For example, saying that you messed up because of the weather outside, or because you missed your alarm. That is
Mama, excuse me. Can we have a moment of silence while I make my bed?
seriously.
Can we please have a moment of silence while I turn in 4 circles?
3. Okay, there we go.
Oh, wow.
So immaturity. So maturity is the more mature a person is, the more responsible they are. Now, what does responsibility mean? That does not mean don't drink and drive. Like, sure, that is a form of responsibility. What maturity means is understanding the concept of I am the reason and the creator and the source for all things. So it is not the weather and it is not the alarm that got you off of something. And when an obstacle shows up, that doesn't mean that that's an excuse to not show up in a certain way, right? So through a person's language, I can tell someone's level of maturity, and that is normally showing up in the form of, does the person let their outcomes, their follow through, be dependent based on external things, or do they take ownership for all circumstances regardless of what they may be? Okay. So that's thing number 1, responsibility. Thing number 2 is education.
And we're talking about maturity
We're talking
in
about,
this journey.
we're talking about maturity in this journey. The second piece is education. Now, here's the thing, like, education is going to determine the quality of our results. And the truth is that we don't know what we don't know. And let's say if someone doesn't know how to do the 7 basic movements, right? Like hinge, squat, lunge, pull, press, rotate, anti-rotate, or you're like, I don't even know what you're talking about, then if you don't know what I'm talking about, then you're probably not doing it. And that's okay. It's not your fault. It's just that if you're not doing it, then there is something that you are not executing on. So that is an area of opportunity. So that is like education in terms of movement, right? And then there can be education in terms of nutrition. I was literally just recording a podcast, and they're asking me questions about nutrition, and education with regards to nutrition, it's like, do you know whether a food is a real food or a food-like product? Do you know what level of processing a food is? Do you know the reasoning behind why you are eating what you're eating? Do you know the macronutrient of the food that you're eating? Do you know which macronutrients are in the food that you're eating? I'm not saying this to I'm saying all of that to just bring awareness to what does education means in terms of nutrition, right? And also knowingness with regards to ourselves and our environment. So for example, whenever we feel like we want to emotionally eat, go ahead and drop EE if you struggle with emotional eating. A certain level of education when it comes to controlling it will be knowing ourselves, knowing what triggers us. Let me just wrap this up. Knowing what in our environment either makes it more challenging or easier for us to follow through with something, right? So a part of education is knowingness of self, because we're all very, very, very different. And then the other piece when it comes to maturity is skill set. Because skill set is really it's really education backed up by execution. you can know all the things here, but if you're not executing it, then you're not actually skilled. And I can tell someone's skill set based on their habits and their environment. So
Yeah.
thanks, Lisa, for dropping that.
I was thinking when you were talking about maturity versus or responsibility versus education, things like this, I was thinking about maturity.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're just joining us or hearing this from the middle randomly, we're talking about in your health, fitness, body journey.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I'm sure it can apply many other places. But specifically, I'm thinking about maturity as an inner job. Like it comes from your beingness.
Mm-hmm.
It comes from inside. It's internal. Whereas like education and skills are external. There is no ChatGPT prompt you can give to say, who am I?
Mm-hmm.
Or to get a response for, who am I? Because you are the only one who can answer that. And part of maturity is the wisdom of knowing who you are, what things serve you or don't serve you, when those things serve you or don't serve you, how fast or how slow, or like how much you speed up or slow down in any given circumstance, and why. Like nobody and nothing can give you that information but you. There can be pointers, there can be guideposts, there can be us leading you to help you discover that. But because we're all different, you're the only one who will be able to figure that out. And that's where you get that from reflection of your mistakes. You get that from reflection of every time you fall down, every time you fail, every time you fall short, every time you don't measure up to the expectation that you had for yourself. Mm-hmm. That's like the innerness of like maturity. Mm-hmm. And then there is the knowledge, the education, the skills, the tools, the communities, the people, all these other external things that help aid in your growth. Mm-hmm. But you're the only one who completely decide that growth path. And it's a wisdom. It's a wisdom too of, if you want to know yourself more, just sit in silence.
That's good.
Just sit. Don't have your phone, don't have distractions, don't have the TV on, don't even read a book. Don't let your mind do nothing but do whatever it does. Mm-hmm. In a quiet space with nothing else happening, because there's a conversation going on in your head 24/7.
Yeah.
You just don't move your lips because people think you're crazy. But it's happening. You're either talking to someone else or having a conversation with someone else, or you're thinking about a situation, or you're making up some kind of story or whatever. And that's where you really get to know yourself. Then when you start asking questions about why are those conversations. So when the conversations come up around food, around your body, around exercise, around why you don't want to do it, around, it's hard to get up in the morning, all these things that contribute to wherever you're at in the journey, and you start to ask yourself, where did that come from? Oh, why did I think that? Who told me that? How do I know that that's real? Mm-hmm. And you start questioning it. Like, why is it that you believe that it's going to be extremely complicated and you have to grind yourself to a nub in order to get the results that you want? Why is that the story you're telling yourself? Because I'm sure you could find evidence of something else that's also true, that's not that. So why is that your dialogue?
Identity.
Yeah, and a lot of it comes from past experience.
Right, identity.
Oh, well, this is what has happened before. Okay, well, it doesn't have to keep happening, but that's the pattern you're ingraining in your mind, and easier said than done to change that. But
We're going to be talking about that in the challenge, by the way.
Yeah. Stay on track challenge starting March 3rd.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a good time.
Yeah.
So, okay, now let's circle back around.
Okay.
The
All or
topic
nothing
is
mindset.
all or nothing mindset. And then we were talking about aggressive / assertive versus reckless.
So let's really all back up, and now let's lead with, okay, Erin and Sari, so what do I do next?
So what do I do now?
So here, go ahead and drop IN if you know that you've been struggling with all or nothing mindset.
I didn't talk about the difference between all or nothing versus all in.
Okay, you want to talk about that? Or should we give them the action step? I'm open.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I want to talk about this real quick.
Okay.
It will be quick. So you can think all or nothing, but it's very limiting. You have two speeds. You have 0 or 100. Try to go 100 miles an hour out of the parking lot. Good luck. Okay? That's all or nothing. And then you have all in. I'm all in. I'm determined. I'm focused. I'm dedicated. I'm committed. I want this. And that is where you can then develop all of the other speeds in between 0 and 100 without judging yourself, without shame, without guilt, because none of those things move you forward.
Mm-hmm.
And I say part of gaining a maturity in this journey and a wisdom in this journey and the knowing of self in this journey is making the mistakes, reflecting on them, and then adjusting appropriately and understanding. Here's the real kicker. You can accept where you are and also want to be better. But if you do not accept where you are right now, you won't be better long term, ever. Because you haven't reached a point where you've accepted it. Okay, I've gained 30 pounds. You know, I am where I am. I love myself. I know that I'm worth this. And this is where we are. And I'm not going to judge myself for it anymore. I'm not going to beat myself up for it anymore. It just is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
I've made peace with it. And now I'm going to improve.
Mm-hmm.
But you can't go the now I'm going to improve if you're still in a battle with yourself and where you're at, because you're still looking at what has been and not what is. Okay. Told you it was going to be short.
Okay.
Proud of me?
Yeah. So where do we go from here? And here's what it comes down to. I see, Taylor. I see you. So in order to speed up, if you've been struggling with an all or nothing mentality, you got to slow down. And what the slowing down looks like, it could mean that taking a deep breath, but what I actually mean is instead of focusing on 500 things, you're going to focus on one thing. For example, in the challenge that we have coming up, that's starting on March 3rd, the Stay on Track Challenge, every single day, we're going to reveal to you a concept based on some of the most common obstacles that hold people back from being consistent and for being the excuses, reasons why they keep falling off. Falling off is only going to get you further away from your goals, and you cannot afford to fall off. So you got to build a pace. So a pace means focusing on only one thing at a time. So for example, in the challenge, we're going to teach you the thing, and then you're going to focus on one thing, not 5.
Mm-hmm.
And after 5 days, what it's going to show you based on what you're going to hear and what you're going to execute is what is actually possible for you beyond 5 days. You see, because the magic lies in execution. not in waiting, not in overdoing it. Like your best body, your best life doesn't happen from being all in for 10 days and then losing track for 100. It doesn't work that way. I would rather you do one thing for 100 days, and I will guarantee you will get better results than doing 5 things for 10 days and then falling off for 100 days. The power is in momentum. And here's the thing: when we create momentum, we can stack on it.
Compound.
So, and a lot of times people think that the journey is going to look like what the current step is, or they want to know what the entire journey is going to look like.
And then they get overwhelmed when they do know what it looks like.
No, and the intention is to stay in the step you're in right now. And that's that.
I've seen it. I have a lemon seed in my mouth. I've seen a couple people post about what they think consistency looks like and what consistency actually is. And imagine a row of, like, I just happen to have 2 of the same glass right here. This is a fun story, but anyways, there's a whole bunch of different glasses, and not different, but all of the same glass just lined up in a row like that. And it says what they think consistency looks like, and every glass is full. But what consistency actually looks like is every glass has water in it, but they're all at different levels.
Mm-hmm.
Because some days are better than other days. But the point is, you showed up, AKA I put water in. You showed up. Sometimes you show up this much. Sometimes you show up this much. But inconsistency happens when you try to show up this much and you can do it for 3 days, and then you don't show up at all for 20. Yeah. And then you show up hardcore for, it's jerky. It's that student drive. It's the jerkiness that
and I want to speak into that and because this can be dangerous, because this is where a lot of people start to create excuses and then slide backwards. What Erin just said doesn't mean settle with oh my God, I had a bad day, therefore let me settle with this. Hard days, bad days are going to happen. That does not mean settle with an empty cup. What that means is understand that that's a part of the process and strive to fill up the cup as much as possible in relation to where you've been able to fill it up, because this is where I see most people start to slide backwards. They start to build momentum and then they start to get comfortable, and then they're like, progress, not perfection. I can have a donut. No, that doesn't mean that.
You know what happens the most? When they disengage from the community. Mm-hmm. The more engaged you say, I'll say this until I'm blue in the face. The more you engage in the community, in the Facebook group, make posts, comment on other people's posts, ask questions, talk about your wins, post a funny meme, who cares? But the more plugged in you stay, you have no power if you're not plugged in. Your batteries will run out. Your charge will die. Mm-hmm. So you got to plug in to keep getting the power and the juice. The same with everyone. Even though our habits are, like, at this point, I'd say extremely advanced, I still got to be plugged in to something somewhere with somebody, or else I'm even going to start to slide back. It's just how we are as human beings. So, like, that's where the challenge is amazing. Join the challenge. Melissa, I saw you. Angela Whalen, good to see you. Sarah Morris, good to see you. Long time no see. Hey. Like, jump into the challenge. I dropped the link a couple times. I'm going to drop it one more time. Oh, that's not the challenge, but that's something else that I want to talk about that's happening right after this. Where's the link? Just pop it up right here. Will someone drop this link that I put in the challenge? Will you drop it in the chat, please? But here's the thing. It's not, it's like this amount right here might have been your maximal effort for the day, but you still did something. It could be like, oh, I usually do an hour walk, but today I had meetings up the wazoo and 20 minutes was all I could figure out how to sneak in. So I did something rather than nothing, right? So that's consistency. And it also looks like this. It looks like this.
Mhm. Mhm.
You're not always doing your best of best of best of best.
Mhm.
It doesn't mean that when you go backwards a little bit, you're doomed or you're lesser than, or you suck as a person, or you're not made for this or cut out for this or capable of this. No, it just means that you're in a different part of the cycle of this journey and of this life.
Yep.
There are up days, there are down days, there are sideways days. So each one of them have a gift in them. It's our job and our responsibility to find the gift and our gratitude to move forward. If we're not doing that, we can't move forward. We can't expect ourselves for the next day to be better if our mind isn't taking us there.
Mhm.
All right. So that's one of the very powerful things about staying plugged into our community, our just energy, your ecosystem, wherever, if it's getting all the goods emails that we send out on every Friday with a bunch of free shit and funny things and activities and events and whatnot. Also, LDub, that many of you know, and if you don't, you should, because she's awesome. She's been with us for over 4 years, and she's had an incredible journey. Again, ups and downs, and we've walked her through these things too. And she's just never unplugged herself. She's doing an event right now, which is a very, very big, amazing step for her, and we're super proud of her. And it's letting go of limitations. And so that's the link that I just dropped. Look at my eyes got watery. I'm proud of you, Dub, if you see this. I don't think you will. But anyways, she's doing a workshop that starts in 10 minutes. So I want to invite you to that too.
Yeah.
First sign up for the challenge. And then there's a link in the chat that looks like that. I think you will need to go register, like go there, click the link, register for the event, and then you'll get a Zoom link to join. But Sarit and I are both going to be there, and I know it's going to be amazing. So if you want to let go of any of the limitations that you do have in that internal dialogue that we talked about, I can't do this. It's hard for me. I'm tired. I'm too this. I'm too that. I'm too busy. I'm too, they're all just limitations you made up in your own mind.
Yeah.
Anything else? Callie, are you going to be there?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Callie going to be there?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
No limits for me.
No limits at all.
No limits for me. Zero them.
All right, you guys, thank you so much for joining us. Join the challenge, Stay on Track challenge, starts on March 3rd. Jump into the letting go of your limitations workshop starting in 10 minutes.
Yeah. And we'll see you next time.
Okay,
Bye.
bye.